Where are you from originally?
Houston, Texas.
What was that like growing up?
Well, it's funny. I mean, that's all I ever knew. And I never thought that I would leave. But it was also really hard. The best thing I ever did was leave in my 20s because there's so much dysfunction, just so much dysfunction in my family. And it allowed me to grow and separate myself from that dysfunction. Even though I had my own dysfunction, it was a lot better for me to navigate life on my own instead of being tied to my alcoholic mother and all of the issues that are in my family, along with all the trauma that I endured. So it allowed me to, I guess at that time, feel more like a runaway, start my own life.
Were both parents around? This show is sponsored by Open Recovery Addiction Help. Whether you're newly sober, in long-term sobriety, or even maybe looking to make a change in your life, Open Recovery offers 24/7 support right from your phone. It's anonymous and packed with tools to help you stay connected, stay accountable, and build the life you deserve. Download the Open Recovery Addiction Help app today and take the next step in your recovery journey.
No. My mother had me when she just turned 19, and my father and I was an accident, but my father and she did get married for about a year, and they tried, but it didn't work out. And my father was not a part of my life for a lot of it until about my teens, and we started kind of seeing one another off and on, but I did see him periodically, but he was the diehard hippie. He worked on motorcycles and just had a life that was not good for a child to be around.
Yeah, he wasn't built to be a father.
No.
Yeah. Did your mom get married, or was there another man?
She got married lots of times. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's... My mom and I ended up moving in with my grandparents when I was about 6 years old. So we kind of went back and forth prior to that. And one of her boyfriends ended up beating me. And I was given a choice at 6 years old to stay with my grandparents or go back with my mom. So I had to make that decision on my own. And I ended up choosing my grandparents because I didn't feel safe with my mother and I didn't feel safe with the man that she was with. And that was really, really hard. And I'll never forget the conversation, standing in my grandmother's bedroom, looking out over the living room and sharing with my mother that I'd made that decision and not feeling that she really fought for me. She chose him over me. And that's where the real abandonment started for me. Yeah.
So you were 6 years old at this time?
Mm-hmm.
And your mother picked this guy over you, and then you moved out, lived with your grandmother.
Yeah, she picked that life. I mean, if you think about it, she was at that time probably 25 years old. So I know that being a mother was probably very difficult for her. And I know now that a man is what validated my mother.
Your mother was an alcoholic?
Yes.
And was she active at 25 years old?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a lifelong, really a lifelong struggle for her. She went in waves as far as her capacity to care for me. When I was 12, she ended up getting remarried. And I thought this guy was going to be like it for us. I was finally going to have the family that I wanted. I was going to get to move back in with my mom. So I was with my grandparents for the 6 years. And then she married this guy. And I just thought that he was going to be our knight in shining armor to give us the life that I thought we both deserved, right? And even at 12, thinking about that, right? Like I always thought about my mom and was just always so hopeful to have what I considered what a life should be like with your mother. And that did not work out well. That did not work out well. And for many reasons, he ended up being a real nightmare. Mm-hmm.
How long did they stay married for?
So I was 12 when they got married, and I must have been 16, 17 when they got a divorce.
Okay. And you were living with them the whole time?
Yeah. A lot of destruction during that time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like the drinking got really out of hand with them, and there was sexual abuse. My mother knew after a time, and I told her twice, and she never left. And then she finally decided to leave him when it got too bad between the two of them.
Yeah. A lot
of pain.
Yeah. Another instance where she's picking the man over her daughter.
Yeah. And my mom was an alcoholic. She was drinking, right? And drinking in my life was very normalized. I mean, my grandfather drank all the time. Here's my mother drinking all the time. And even at a young age, things would be going on in our lives. And my mother would encourage drinking for me. And I couldn't sleep in her boyfriend's house. And she would give me like half a sleeping pill. And the first time I got drunk was when I was 12 at the wedding. I was at my grandparents' house, and I don't even remember getting in trouble for it. It was just, I may have had a little talking to the next day, but it wasn't anything. And about 6 months into me living with them, and I was so happy. I was just so happy. And he had money, and, he was kind, and he was doing all these wonderful things for us, and we were doing them as a family. And I now realize he was grooming me at that time. And it was about 6 months in that he took me to a movie, Porky's, which I should have known at that time, like who takes a 12-year-old to Porky's. I don't know if you know this movie, but it's about sex and alcohol and young kids, and it's not appropriate for a 12-year-old. And here I'm thinking he's so cool. And we're sitting in the movie, and I'm 12. So I'm little, and I'm sitting in this chair, and he has his arm around me, and he was about 6'1", big guy. And I felt so safe. And then he started moving his hand down my leg. And I was just like, what the hell is going on right now, right? I was in such shock. I was pushing his hand away, and he was pushing harder. And then I jumped up and ran out, and he came after me. And there was a trip that I wanted to take to go to Europe with the school I was moving into. And he was saying that I wasn't going to be able to do it because I couldn't afford it. And then at that time, he bought me, basically, right? I mean, this is where the gifts start coming in. So he said I could go on the trip. And he said, please don't tell your mother. It will never happen again. I'm so sorry. And why don't we go, I'm in tears. And why don't we go buy some luggage now for your trip? And so that's what we did. And I went home with a secret. And I really believed it wouldn't happen again.
How long until it happened again?
Well, it's really interesting because I really don't know the answer to that, because I know that he was doing things to me in my sleep. And I just felt it was happening, right? My intuition was so strong that it was happening. He would say really inappropriate things to me. I remember like my mom and him like watching porn, and it just was so uncomfortable to live in this place that was supposed to be my home. And I found out the reason it was confirmed is I woke up and his hand was between my legs.
Oh my God.
And he was doing things to me in my sleep when my mom would go walk the dog. And how it came out first initially was I had gone to the trip to Europe. And then I got home and they were like, Richard has a trip to go to Hong Kong and Singapore, and we're going to make it a family trip. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, here I am. I've never done anything outside of Texas or Houston. And I went to Europe, and now I'm going to get to go to Hong Kong and Singapore. Like, wow, I've hit the lottery, right? So we end up going on the trip, and we're in Hong Kong, and we'd been by the pool all day at the hotel. And Richard and I went up to the room first because my mom, God knows, she was probably partying by the pool and didn't want to go up yet. But so we ended up going up, and I said, well, I'm going to take a shower because we were going to dinner. And there was this big glass shower, and then there was a door that had slats, kind of like the door right there. And if you looked under it, you could see. And I see him on the other side of that door trying to look at me through the shower. And I jump out really fast. And then I heard my mom come in. And so I got back in the shower. And then I tried to get dressed like nothing happened. I mean, he didn't know that I saw him, that I know of. And he told my mother that he wanted us to leave, that he needed some time alone. And I was furious because the only thing I had control of at that time was how I looked on the outside. So I'd gotten my makeup on, and now I wanted to do my hair, and I didn't get to do my hair. And that threw me into a tailspin. I was like so upset. So my mother says, well, we'll find some place to get your hair done. So we're out, we're walking all over. We can't find any place. Everything's closed. And we're in this huge fight. And I remember there was like these walkways over the water. And we're screaming at each other. And she like starts to choke me. She's got her hand on my neck. And I said to her, like, I screamed out, I can't believe you're doing this to me and protecting a man that is sexually abusing me. So that's how I told her the first time. And she stopped. And she was, I mean, at this time, you can only imagine how bad I'm sobbing. And she's trying to console me. But the only thing that I remember that came of that conversation, because I told her that I thought things were being done to me in my sleep, is for me to wear more clothes. And I did that. I wore more clothes. And then the next time I found him with his hand between my legs, I went to school. And by the way, I'd had a pact with my friend. We were going to commit suicide together because I was failing school. I was doing so poorly. I was drinking on the weekends. And I think I might have been 13 at the time. And thinking that attention from boys was how I'd get a boy to like me. And so I went to school and I came back and my mother could tell that I was just a shell of a person at that time. She asked me what was wrong and I told her what happened. And she called a helpline. And this helpline was trying to help us to what are next steps? What could we do? And then I remember Richard getting home and it was like he could tell something was very wrong. And my mom went into the room behind closed doors. I'm like standing out in the living room. And basically he said that I knew it was happening and I wanted it to happen. And I don't really know what happened after that, but I know my mom didn't leave because he swore he wouldn't do it again. And we ended up picking up and moving. And oh, by the way, my whole life, at this time, I'd started my freshman year in high school. I had moved every 2 years of my life, restarting all the time. So now we ended up moving to a place called Woodlands, Texas. And I remember I I blossomed over that summer before sophomore year. And I was ready to start over again, right? Like now I'm going to go to school, reinvent myself. And so that's what happened. And honestly, I have no idea if anything happened again because I don't really remember living in the house. I have put that away somewhere. I remember my life in high school. I remember my very destructive relationships I had. And I remember just little pockets of things, but I don't remember a lot because I lived basically at my boyfriend's mom's house. I tried to stay away as much as I could.
Your boyfriend's mom's house was your safe zone.
It was much safer than where I was, even though my boyfriend and I fought all the time. Bad fights. But what did I know different?
Right. Damage control, right? At home or with the boyfriend. Yeah. Where was your drinking at this point when you were living with your boyfriend's mom? Was it gradually increasing from 12 to, let's say, sophomore year, 16 years old?
Like I did what every other teenager did. I went out on the weekends and that's when I would drink. But a lot of times I drank more. I mean, countless times that I would go into a blackout. But it was my escape. I would escape going out on the weekends, going to the parties, and just trying to just forget, I guess, everything that was going on in my life. And when I drank and when I was with friends or trying to get a guy to like me, that's how I could forget what my home life was like.
When they got the divorce, your mother and her husband, were the police brought in ever?
No.
Or no?
No, never. And it was right before my senior year of high school that they got the divorce. And I remember begging my mother not to move because I was like, now it's my senior year of high school. I was like, I cannot move again. And so we ended up staying in the Woodlands and got this little house. And then my mom's drinking was off the rails at that time. I remember being in so much fear that she was going to end up killing herself, drinking and driving. And it's like the roles flipped a lot in that situation because I felt more of the mother. And I had no guidance, she would try to mother me at times. And I'm like, really? Like, I remember distinctly her saying one time, like, you have no respect for me. And I'm like, well, you have no respect for me. How am I going to respect you? You don't even parent me, mother me, Yeah. So that was hard.
So you were taking on a mother role at a very young age as well.
Yes. And fast forward, I did find out during that time that my mother had reached out to my grandparents to try to get help because she knew that her drinking was really bad. And of course, that generation, they're just like, you need to pull your stuff together.
Yeah.
And they did not give her the support. And now that I know that, it's very upsetting because maybe if she would have gotten the help then, it would have been different. But then there were so many more years of the drinking, and she never got fully sober.
What were your 20s like? You are playing mother role through your teens. What had happened to you was, I am so sorry.
Thank you.
It's tragic. And spoiler alert, you eventually find sobriety. So you come back full force, thank God, which I love.
Yeah.
But walk us through your 20s and what that was like.
So once I graduated high school, I was like, I am out, right? And I'm never looking back. Now, again, I hadn't really had any guidance. I didn't know. I knew I was supposed to go to college. So what do? I go to college, but what that ends up being for me is an escape. And I stopped going to classes, find the party scene, find the friends that would party with me. And so that went on for a couple of years, like bouncing around, like going to college, leaving because I was getting incompletes in all my classes because I wasn't going, then trying again, and then coming back, going to another junior college. I went to a junior college back home. Again, not sticking with that. And finally, my grandmother was like, okay, I might have been at this time 19, 20. And during that time, like it was just all about partying for me and escaping, going to the clubs. I mean, I graduated high school in 87. So 88, 89, I mean, just party, and the club scenes. And so that was my life. And I do remember, I love this one vivid memory that I have is I'm dating a drug dealer. Everybody I'm around is like partying all the time. And I lived in this apartment complex that had like a pool in the middle. And I was walking by the pool and there was this big glass window. And I see a reflection of myself. And I swear, I thought it was my mom. And when I saw that reflection, I was like, no, I am not becoming my mother. And I ended up picking up my stuff and leaving. And I think at that time I went to my grandmother's, and that's when she ended up taking me for some testing to see like, what were my interests? What kind of schooling would be best for me? Because they do this testing now for young people early on to kind of see, where are you going to fit best? Where do your interests lie? Mm-hmm. What are you good at? Right. So I did this testing, and it appeared that I was really good creatively. And that's what I loved. And it makes sense because I think about all the times in my life, it was when I was being creative that I was most fulfilled. So that came out. And then it was like, well, okay, what kind of school am I going to thrive in? Because apparently like universities were not going to work for me. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going to the Art Institute of Houston, and I went for music and video business. And so that was finally like a path for me. Like finally I was doing something that I really enjoyed. Now, granted, I was still partying, still having fun, still trying to get through school, still having bad relationships. But I did graduate. I'll never forget graduating. It was like the best day of my life. And all of my family, we went to dinner, and my mother actually was with this new guy, and he was so great. And like, I just felt like everything was finally clicking. Yeah. Like life was going to be good. And I started working. My first job out of school was at a Greyhound track, and I was running the in-circuit TV with these two other guys. And I ran the camera at the track, and I remember just still like, I was in this horrible relationship with this guy. I was still partying, just still not, just trying to get by, doing my work and trying to make a path for myself, but still struggling so much. And then my father died, and that just threw me into a tailspin, and the drinking and even the drugs like elevated at that time. And the reason why, because it wasn't that he was a big part of my life, it just the finality of it, that I was never going to have now my dad in my life, right? So that chapter was completely shut, and I'd never dealt with death before. And so that was really, really difficult for me. And I had a guy come back into my life from high school, and we were dating, and he was living with me and poaching off of me basically. And any money I got from my dad's death, he was stealing from me because he was doing coke and all this stuff. He would go to work, and because at one point I was like, you got to get a job. I don't care what it is. So we started waiting tables, and he would come home and he'd be like, oh, I didn't make any money. I'm like, how do you go to work, wait tables? I wait tables too. And this is how I support myself. And don't tell me you're not making any money. So I figured it out. He was buying drugs and such. But so then I got rid of him. I got through that grief, through the grief. And so now I'm about, and I had the job at the Greyhound track, and I only did that for about 3 months because unfortunately what has happened throughout my career, a lot of my career early on, was any man that was my boss ended up having a crush on me. Mm-hmm. And it always made it extremely uncomfortable. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I played it to get my way. But at that time, the guy got really weird with me, my boss. And so I left that job, waiting tables again, which again, now you're drinking, partying, don't have a lot of structure in your life, waiting tables. That's a party lifestyle. So basically you're waiting tables and making money to then go out afterwards. So that was like the priority. Now, my Aunt Melissa, which I have 2 aunts, and uncle, and my mom. So there were four siblings. And my Aunt Melissa had reached out to me and she said, I found this job in the paper. And it was for an operations coordinator for a company called Liberty Sports Communications. And I was like, wow, okay, great. And like, this is so great. But I'm terrified of the interview and such because I hadn't really had a real interview yet.
Yeah.
And so I go in for the interview and she doesn't end up hiring me, but she says, the woman that was interviewing me, and she says, but we do contract work. We usually need more help around the holiday time. And, there may be potential for you to come back. Now I walk out of there. I think I'm never going to hear from her again. I continue my party lifestyle, not knowing what is going to happen with me. Now I'm about, let's say, 23, and I'm brought on 23, 24, and probably 23. And they end up calling me, and I go in for contract work. Now, when I started the job, I was beyond excited, right? Like, I feel like, oh my God, I've made it, right? Like I've graduated college. I actually made it through college. And now I have my first job in television. And so I started the job contract. They ended up hiring me. And then I ended up meeting this guy there. And his name was James. And I thought like he was my soulmate. I mean, like, here's my savior, here's my love, right? And so I started going out with James. And then the guy that I was the program manager for the sports network I was working for, he ended up getting approval to have an assistant. And he came to me and he's like, I would love to hire you as my assistant. So now I've been in operations probably for about a year. And that's where you create the logs for the television network. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now I go over to programming as the programming assistant. Now I'm living with James. I've got this job. I've got direction, but I'm still drinking wine every night, like making dinner, having wine, only going out on the weekends pretty much. But drinking every day, that was normal to me. I saw it every day of my life, and it didn't seem abnormal at all to me. You come home from work, you have a glass of wine. That's just what I did. So I was brought on as the assistant, and then I mean, I'm in the job 3 or 4 months, and my boss has to leave for medical leave, and we don't know when he's going to come back. So now I'm the assistant. I only know a fraction of what this man does. And now I am put in that role. They have no one to bring in. And they're like, okay, Marci, we need you to step up and see if you can do this. So at that point, it's like sink or swim. And I am living in utter chaos. I mean, like, I just remember trying to learn the job. And it's TV, so it's live every day. So it's not like you leave the job and it's over. Like, everything that's happening, you're a part of every day, even when you're not there. So you're walking into problems all the time. So it was a very difficult time for me. But I persevered. Somehow, I guess that survival instinct in me really kicked in at that time, because I was like, I am making it, right? My past is not going to keep me from having a successful life. And it was so interesting. In my whole entire life, like, I always knew I wanted to be somebody and that I was going to live a good life. That was something that I always dreamed of. So I always think about it now that I know so much about manifestation. I'm like, I guess I manifested my life today. But so I ended up doing that job for 6 months. He never came back. And they posted the job. And I remember going through that. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been doing this job all this time.
And then they posted. F them.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. So this other guy, I just knew that he was going to get this job, right? And because he was living in Denver, where the network, the regional was, because it was Prime Sports Rocky Mountain that I was working for. And I ended up getting the job. So that was fantastic.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then Fox and Liberty Communications merged. Now they're going to move at that time. So I became the program manager for Prime Sports Rocky Mountain. And at that time, they ended up moving all of the program managers to the regionals. So whatever state their network was, that's where you were going to move. So I was going to move to Colorado, to Denver. And so I was super excited about it. New start again. It's always about a new start. And I was going to leave the guy that I was with, James. And because I didn't really see it going anywhere, and it was not really a great relationship. And we ended up going. I played along, like, okay, I'm bringing you. But like, I was like, I'm not really bringing you. But then he asked me to marry him. So I'm like, okay, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. I guess I'm supposed to marry this guy. So I bring him with me to Denver. I buy the house. I have the good job. And our relationship was spiraling. Now I'm so unhappy. So now my drinking has really elevated. At this time, I'm probably 27 years old. Okay.
And you had gotten married already, or were you engaged?
We were engaged.
Okay.
We were engaged.
Yep.
And I had a pattern in relationships. Okay. So if I were unhappy in a relationship, I would go outside of the relationship. I'd start something with someone else, and that would bridge. I knew I was going to leave the guy, and it would bridge that gap to someone else. Because first of all, I couldn't be alone. I didn't know how to be alone. A man validated me, and then I wasn't going to allow anyone to hurt me. Like, that gave me control in some weird way, because I was like, screw you. You're not fulfilling what I need, the love and the affection that I need, and you're a real asshole. So I'm just going to find someone else, and I'll move on to the next person. So it was about, and again, our relationship was getting really bad. I had gone outside the relationship, and now I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm leaving this guy. I can't do this. Now we're engaged. We're planning the wedding. But I'm like, how am I doing this? And the final straw for me, well, there were two. One, my grandmother came to visit us, and he was horrible to me in front of her. So I'm thinking, wow, if he could be that way in front of my grandmother, imagine what he could be like when she's not around. Because it was starting to get physical. And then we went to, it was 6 weeks before the wedding. We went to his work his work picnic. And we had gotten in a fight prior because I hadn't bought him the right kind of clothes to wear. And so then we went to the picnic. We left the picnic. We went to the bank. He wanted to deposit his paycheck. And he asked me for a pen. And I didn't have a pen. And he's like, who the F doesn't have a pen in their purse? I mean, like off the rails. Like, I'm like, what is happening right now, right? So we went home and I was like, I can't do this. And I told my mother, like, I can't do it, Mom. And so she gave me permission to leave him. So within a month, I ended up getting a job in LA, sold the house, and I broke off the engagement. I was like, okay, so the job in LA was with the same company. I was a manager at the time. And I took a step back as a coordinator. But I had in my mind, okay, it's the same amount of money. They're going to pay for my move, and I'll be a manager again in a year. And then and then I was like, I just got to get out of here. I just got to leave.
What did you do? So you said you like to bridge the relationships. Yeah. Did you have a boyfriend in LA, or were you single for a little bit?
I was so excited about, like, finally.
Okay.
I'm doing this on my own.
Okay, so you did this the right way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But your drinking is...
Yeah, it's elevating.
Okay.
It's elevating at that time. Like, not making good decisions, right? Because now, I mean, like, life is chaotic. I'm an emotional mess. I'm about to create all this change in my life. But the only thing I know is drinking, right? Always falling back on drinking.
There's a lot of fear around big changes like that.
So much fear. And I'm making 3 major ones.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we ended up going through that. And of course, then it's the fairy tale, right? You're like, oh, what have I done? Oh, why am I leaving him? Like, it was so crazy. But again, it's that fear. Mm-hmm. You kind of glamorize what you had when in fact it wasn't good.
Yeah, you think about all the good things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, I found a girlfriend that I knew from Houston, lived in LA. So I had a place to live. Now I got the job, and my mom came to drive with me. So I had all my stuff and my dog, and now I'm off to LA. I'm off to LA, and I was ready to start the next chapter in my life at that time.
So you start working for the same company, but in LA. Mm-hmm. Do you get the manager position a year later? Do things go as planned?
So I started working with Fit TV, and that was such a bad time.
Yeah.
Bad time. Because now I'm in a new state. I barely know anyone. I've started this new job. And let me tell you, media in Los Angeles, I mean, that is a high stress place to be. I used to say, I'm swimming with the sharks here.
Yeah.
Right? So you better show up. You better show up. But how am I showing up? I'm showing up with a hangover every day. So it was hard. It was hard.
And this is in the 90s.
At that time, it was probably 98.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so about 3 months in, well, I will say this. You asked me about the bridge. I wasn't looking for a bridge. But I will say I went to the airport and I'm leaving. And this guy that I ended up dating in high school was at the frickin' airport and lived in Newport.
No way.
Yes.
Wow.
So we started dating.
Okay.
So I did. I guess I didn't actively seek the bridge, but it was there.
But there was, so you broke off the relationship with your ex. So we'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
There was no bridge. You just, you come across another relationship.
And actually it was kind of life-saving at the time because I didn't have to be alone. I had support,
100%.
somebody I knew.
100%.
So that was really helpful during that transition. I didn't stay with him very long.
Yeah.
And then I was out and I'm like, And at that time, I'm like, oh my God, this is fantastic. I mean, like, I was like a kid in a candy store with all the guys and the partying and
Out in LA, yeah.
it was like, I was having so much fun. And then it was about 3 months in that my now husband stepped into my life.
Wow.
I know.
How long in total did you stay out in LA?
7 years.
7 years. And then, I'm sorry, you said 3 months after the breakup with that guy, you met your now husband?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So your now husband has seen you while you were drinking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But when I started that relationship, it's so interesting because it's kind of like that very warped normality that I would have in my head. Like when I say my drinking was like normal, I could have the glass or two of wine at night. And then on the weekends, we would go out to dinner and I'd have 3 drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we went out, I'd have more. But, there was so much emotional baggage that I brought into this relationship and just that I brought with me in this life. And so it was very, very hard for me to deal and cope at that time. I mean, like my husband and I, we went through some really difficult times because here's a guy that's, we talk about in relationships, we bring our past with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So comes from a place where he had a very normal upbringing. His parents never divorced. They never fought in front of them, in front of the kids. Like he loved his childhood. He loved his college life. Like he just had like this, what I call the fairy tale life, right?
Mm-hmm. And
now here I am. I mean, the only way that I cope with anything is by reacting, a lot of yelling, and just stirring the pot, if you will.
Mm.
And so it was very tumultuous. It was. And there were quite a few times that we were going to not stay together because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously we did.
How long after you guys met did you get married?
So we were together. I met him, I guess, at that time I was like 29. And I turned 30 while I was dating him. And yes, I got the manager's job a year later. So I was with Fit TV, lot of story there. But then within a year, I got a job as a manager for the network FX in on-air promotions.
Yeah, FX, I know.
Yeah. So one thing that I did that was very smart, and I recommend to people, is like when you go into an industry, you learn all facets of it. You learn how everything works together because now you're marketable. Mm-hmm. Now you can get a job in any area. So it sounds on one hand like I'm a total mess, but on the other hand, I have all my stuff together because I know how to play this game. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, like people ask me how, but it's like innate. It's just that I knew that I needed to do it. And there was one person that said, don't be just a cog in the wheel. And that really resonated with me. And so within a year, I became program manager for FX in on-air promotions, which I'd never worked in that area before. Even though I had a really difficult time as the on-air promotions coordinator for Fit TV, I got a very good review from my boss. So that helped me to get that job. Mm-hmm. And during this time, I'm dating someone that is an executive in another area. So I was really creating now what, again, I thought was a very good life. And but it was really, really hard because living in LA, was living on my own, trying to build this life. My family's not around. and trying to build this relationship, trying to build this career. So there was a lot of uncertainty, fear, unknowing, and my victimhood that I brought into everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through, I mean, you have your kids in your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You were drinking after you had your kids.
Yes.
Can you walk us through maybe the last few years of your drinking before you got sober and how you found sobriety?
Sure. Yeah. So my husband and I married in our 30s. We had both our kids. And then my husband, at that time I was at home. I wasn't working anymore. I was staying home, and we had our first child in California. He had an opportunity to go to the East Coast. So that brought us to the East Coast. He was working in in New York, and we moved to Wyckoff, and he grew up in New Jersey. So it was good. So we had family around and this and that, and we ended up having our second child right away. Now, fast forward, again, I wasn't working, but for me, I needed something else. I did. My kids have always been everything to me. I never wanted them to feel what I felt, the abandonment. I almost am too much of a mom because I coddle them, and I am guilty of that. So when my kids now are in grade school, I decide to go after a career in front of the camera. Now, that had been a lifelong dream of mine when I was a teenager. I wanted to be a model. And of course, my mom did give me the comp card and everything, but never followed through with all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So some things were happening. I was asked to walk on this runway for this fundraiser, and it just kind of sparked that inside of me. And so I started thinking about it. And then now the universe is bringing in people into my life that could help me with this journey. I got agents right away. I started going into the city for auditions right away. At this time, we live about 24 miles outside of the city, New York City, in New Jersey. So I am now trying to go after this career and raise my kids on my own. I didn't want to hire anyone to come raise my kids. But I'm also, when I go after something, I'm all in.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm trying to get trained in the city. I've got agents that I have to be at their beck and call. I mean, you're getting calls the night before or an email the night before that you've got an audition the next day. Or if you've got a gig, you don't find out till like very close until the time you're going to have to do it. So, I mean, I'm juggling all of this different stuff. Again, still drinking my wine. Now I start the audition process, trying to balance all this stuff. And my insecurities at this point are at an all-time high. Going into the audition rooms, feeling like I'm being judged all the time. So now what do I turn to? I turn to alcohol, and I start using wine as my liquid courage. So before an audition, I would drink maybe a glass of wine or two. Now I'm in New York City. My kids are in school. I'm trying to get this done before. And what do? I treat myself to lunch, and I'd have a glass of wine or two, and I'd get back, and now I go and into my mom role. And so this was going on a while, and this is where the slippery slope really started happening for me. My husband is moving up in his career. And now I'm doing this, and I'm alone. My husband's working all the time. Again, like I said, people would be like, well, why don't you just get someone to come help you? And I'm like, because in this career, I don't know when I'm going to be called. And I don't want just someone to come to my house every day and help me. I want to be the mom. I want to be there for my mom, for these kids. I want to be the one at the school all the time, right? So it was maddening. And I also at that time was, and I say this for the ladies out there, because now I'm like 41, 42 years old. And I start perimenopause and I just go into the deepest, darkest place. And my drinking elevated because of that. Now that I know more, I realize why that was happening to me. So it was just like the perfect storm to throw me over the edge.
Yeah.
And so my husband got me this job, and you'll know this from someone that's sober. He comes home and he tells me, now that I have this position, we've got to change how we are. We can't be drinking. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, you're going to ask me and tell me I've got to change and like what I'm going to become your Stepford wife? That's what I felt like. And so now I'm pissed. And so now I start drinking more. I start drinking at him. I start drinking because I'm angry. Now I'm angry at the world. I'm just angry at everything, right? And we were going through a really hard time, my husband and I. It was really bad. I hated him. I wanted him. I didn't want to be with him anymore.
What year is this, by the way?
So this is, well, I got sober 2015. So let's say 2014. Now, I will say, I knew my drinking was getting bad. I started thinking, comparing myself to my mom. And wow, where am I going with this, right? And to all those out there, like, you don't just wake up one day and decide like, oh, my drinking's gotten bad. Like, you're thinking about this for a long time, like questioning, like, is what I'm doing normal? Is it just the people around me that just are no fun? Like, what is it?
That's the unmanageable thinking. I used to go through that all the time. The debating back and forth in my head. I knew better. Yes. I know that there's a better way. I know what I'm doing. I have a problem, but not doing anything about it for years.
Right. But what I did try to do, I'd be up in the middle of the night and I'd be like looking online. I'd look at AA. I'd look at hypnosis. I'd look at acupuncture. I'd look at all these different ways. Like, how can I drink normally?
Yep.
Right? Because the idea of never drinking again, when it was all I ever knew, I couldn't fathom that. But I finally got to a place where I was like, okay, I have to. Like, things are getting really bad. So I go to AA.
You just go one day.
I decide, like, I've got to go. Okay. I've got to go. The shame and the guilt was just too much. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And I knew my husband was unhappy too. And so I go. So I go for 3 months. Now I've got my family saying, you don't have a problem. What do you mean?
Oh, no.
Right? Right? I've got my friends. You're not doing anything wrong. Right? And now I'm in AA and I'm like comparing myself to all the stories that are happening. I'm like, wait a minute. Functioning, I'm working, I'm a mom, I'm giving back in the community. Like, I'm not this person. So I convinced myself I'm not an alcoholic. Now it's the year before, it was a full year that I had to convince myself that I was that alcoholic and I needed help. And that year started slowly, right? We're slowly having a glass of wine. See, I can sip the wine. See, I don't need this much. And then it just started elevating. I start surrounding myself with people that drink like I do, and that makes it all okay. And then, and then the work is getting like so much. I mean, the roller coaster ride of being in front of the camera was so hard. The fighting with my husband was so hard. Wanting to get out of what I was in was really hard. Now, it's my final day of drinking. It's October 3rd, 2015. I'm going for a modeling gig where I'm going to model clothing at high-end clothing at a mall, right? And now, of course, I think I've got everything in order. I think I know where I'm going. Of course, I have my water bottle with my liquid courage. My kids are set with the babysitter. And this is a daytime thing. This must have been like 10 a.m. in the morning. And I leave. I get to the mall and I'm going up the escalator. And I remember that debate. I'm like, okay, Marci, you don't need the wine. You can do this on your own. You can do it. So I'm like, yeah, now I'm feeling really good. I'm trusting myself. I'm having some confidence. So I get up there and there's no show. I'm at the wrong mall. So what do? I jump in the car, pop open my liquid courage, driving as fast as I can, drinking that entire water bottle of wine before I get to the next place because I am so freaked out about what has happened. Am I going to make it to the gig? I make it. I do the show. Now my girlfriend has arrived and she watched the show and we're going to go to dinner. We're going to go to lunch afterwards. Now, granted, we're going to lunch after. Like, I don't even know that I ate breakfast, but I have like half a bottle of wine in me. So we go to eat and I'm barely eating because I'm in front of the camera. Like I'm bloated, but it's from drinking, not eating. And so I'm, like my calories, the way I'm ingesting it is with the alcohol, not eating. So I have like half a piece of fish. I think I had a martini. She's having her drinks and a burger. And then we're driving home. I'm driving home. And now she calls me and she says, hey, do you want to go and have one more drink? Who am I to make a good decision at that time? So we go and we stop off somewhere. We have one more drink. And I remember sitting at the bar and I'm like, I got to eat something. Like I am about to cross over. I have a glass of wine in front of me. And I guess my friend got up because now I'm alone. Now I go to my car in a blackout and I drive home. And somebody called me in and I ended up getting a DUI. Mm-hmm. So, but in my mind, but I will tell you, I'm in a small town, so I'm not going to a jail. It was a very, the experience was not that difficult for me.
You went to the precinct and they put you in probably in a holding cell and then it was bail. And
I don't even know that I went in a holding cell. It was like a room.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I remember that they had to, I just remember it just being such a gentle experience, but a lesson that I feel strongly that God stepped in and was like, okay, Marci, you need a consequence. I'm going to give it to you. Because I will tell you that happened. They were very kind about it. My husband did come pick me up. Now, I had called my drinking buddy to come pick me up because in my warped mind, I think I'm going to get away with this. That my
your husband not going to find out?
He's not going to find out.
Yeah.
Right? But he comes up and I'm like, I remember being like, how did he know? And the police ended up calling him. So he picks me up. Now we drive home, complete silence in the car. We get home. The babysitter's there. I mean, we're probably like 3 to 4 hours past the time the girl was supposed to leave. I basically say good night to the kids and I go up to the guest room. Now I wake up the next day. Now I went to bed angry, feeling like I was the victim. If my husband was there for me, things would be better, X, Y, and Z, all the reasons why this had happened. But none of it my fault. But I wake up the next morning and it was just like, what the hell are you doing, Marci? You are about to lose everything that you have built. If you saw my life from the outside, you would have thought I had the perfect house, perfect life, perfect kids, perfect husband. But I was crumbling and everything was crumbling inside. And I'm like, Marci, you've got a problem and you need help. And I finally admitted that I had a drinking problem. And I walk downstairs and my husband's awake. And I sit down with him on the couch and I think to myself, holy crap, I'm going to tell this man that I need help. I'm an alcoholic. And he's either going to help me or he's going to take the kids and leave. And he ended up embracing me. And it was the first time that I felt true love that I'd always sought in my life. Because all I was ever looking for was love and validation in my life. And he gave that to me in that moment.
Wow.
And it was like the weight of the world came off my shoulders. And it was like a switch went off. And I called someone I knew that I'd met in AA, and I went to AA, and I was, at that point, willing to do whatever it took to get sober.
What did you do your first year? First year is the hardest.
Yeah.
Getting sober.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do your first year to get and stay sober?
Well, I committed fully to the 12-step program, to AA. And I did what I was told. And I took every tool that they taught me. I went through the big book. I found a sponsor. And listen, I just want to say that finding a sponsor is not an easy thing to do. It's not. And sometimes they can be extremely controlling. And you got to find the person that works for you, right? Because just because someone says that they're going to be your sponsor and you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, if it's not fully working for you, because I'll never forget a time telling my sponsor, like, you are making me want to drink. Like, that's a problem. That's a problem, right? So, but I just ended up fully committing, doing the 90 day, 90 meetings in 90 days, taking on all of the tools that I learned and fully working those steps, because the magic of healing and serenity and peace, joy, love is in those steps. I don't care how many therapists I went to, how much I did in my life to try to get through the trauma in my life. It was through those steps that I was able to heal.
At what point in your sobriety,
Mm-hmm.
so just to backtrack, you were talking about your mom.
Yeah.
And you laid out the facts about your mom.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't give an opinion. You didn't bash your mom. You just said, hey, my mom was drinking during that time, and not verbatim, but she did the best she could. At what point in your sobriety did you get to that point? Because yes, you could turn around right now and play victim, and you didn't do that.
Yeah.
When did you get to that point?
Well, again, I'm almost 10 years sober. My mother was in and out of rehabs, in and out of halfway houses during my sobriety. And it was very, very difficult for me, because here I am grasping fully sobriety, and I'm seeing the beauty of what sobriety gives you in your life. And all I want is for my mother to get it too. And no matter what my mom had done to me in my life, I still fully had hope that my mother and I would have a relationship, and that she would be there if she couldn't be there for me the way that I needed her to be, that maybe she would be there for my children, her grandchildren, that way. And right or wrong, I mean, she was living in California at the time, and she went through a really bad divorce with this guy, and we tried to get her sober. We tried to do the intervention, and you can't get someone sober unless they are willing to do the work and want it. So it was really, really hard for me during that time. And she stayed in California. We moved to New Jersey. My husband was like, we can't have her come with us, because she was just the black cloud that hung over our family. And here we're trying to make a good life with each other. And so I tried from a distance to help as much as I could. I also did the tough love, tried to shut her out. When you get sober, I'm here, that kind of thing. And then towards the end of her life, because it was really hard for me in AA. I was talking to everyone, like, I want to save my mom. Like, here I'm doing this. Like, how can I help? And this was something I talked about a lot in AA with people about. And they're just like, just be the example. Just be the example. And my mom even told me eventually, like, I see what you have, and that's what I want. But my mother never fully worked the program, I believe. Mm-hmm. And my mother, I see her now for who she was. It wasn't till she died 4 years ago from her addiction.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you. She died in a halfway house in bed. Mm. And let me tell you, she came from a beautiful, beautiful place. She was a beautiful woman, so much to offer. And this addiction destroyed her, destroyed everything she possibly had in life. And she ended up in some awful place, in a little place in Texas with scary men. And it was when I saw pictures of where she died, because I asked my aunt to take pictures, I was like, and then you have so much guilt. Like, you're like, oh my God, like I'm living this beautiful life and that's what my mom's doing. So it was a couple years after she died. And I'm realizing through my healing, like moving into gratitude, becoming very spiritual, finding forgiveness for myself, and now having to forgive those that harm me. And I had to step back and see my mom as an individual and not my mom. Mm. And so I don't hate my mom. I feel sorry for my mom. It saddens me, the life that she had and that she led. And it saddens me that I had to live that with her. Mm. And it did affect me, but life is amazing right now. Like I did a TV show, I've written a book, I'm helping people on stages. Like my story now is about helping other people. And so everything that happened to me, I believe fully had to happen so that I could be a beacon of light in someone else's life. Because it's when you live it that you can truly relate and help other people and show it's possible to get through it, no matter what you've gone through.
What does helping people, you touched on it a little bit, but what does helping people do for you in your own personal recovery?
Yeah. Well, being very raw and honest and open about my story has been very cathartic. It very much helps me heal and bash the shame that we have around addiction, about what we've gone through, because I had so much shame about what I'd gone through and decisions that I'd made in my life. But you know what? Like that doesn't have to define me. And so being able to share, be raw and authentic has really helped me through my healing of what I've gone through, and being able to like detach from the feelings, the guttural feelings that I had with it. And writing my book was a big, big part of that healing. Because reliving those stories was very painful. But I've now detached from that, and it doesn't have a hold on me anymore because of that work, because of being open and honest. And the more that we have conversations like this, we are normalizing it. I mean, mental health is the number one struggle, and addiction goes with that, in the United States.
It's crazy. And our society, especially with men.
Yeah.
Listen, I empathize with women 100%. With men with mental health, we have like this alpha persona that men need to keep, that mask. So talking about what's going on internally for a male is really tough. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, not only from an addiction, sobriety standpoint, but just a mental health standpoint as a whole. A place where men can get vulnerable, men and women can get vulnerable, and just creating that safe space for people to talk about their stories and share it on my platform.
I think it's amazing. And it's more opportunities like this that help to push forward the new narrative around this. And I do feel for men, because I know that you're really taught to push everything down, and you just stand up and be a man, right? And I think that's heartbreaking too, because that creates even more of a divide, in my opinion, between men and women a lot of times. I will say when it comes to getting help, it is harder for women to do because the woman can't leave the house.
Fair
like
enough.
a man can.
Yes.
So a lot of us stay stuck in this cycle in our homes, drinking, because we are, one, afraid to admit that we have a problem. We're afraid to lose our children, and we can't leave because we're the ones that ultimately are caring for everything in the home.
You are absolutely right. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. So it makes it really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of women out there even that are going through divorce, or maybe they're close to divorce, and they are trying to keep it silent because they're so afraid of losing their kids.
Yeah.
And honestly, at the end of the day, the addiction, it doesn't go away. We have to get help. And the wonderful thing is now, there's so much more help available. It's not just AA. It's not just rehab. I mean, there's so many different facets, and you can even get like a sober coach. Like, you can do it from your home now. And COVID helped that because AA is online now. There's a lot of people out there that, like you and me, we've been sober and we just want to help. We want to give back. We want to give this gift back to people. And so it's just getting educated around it. But the thing is you can't make anyone do it.
Yeah. There's actually this app. It's called 12-Step Addiction Recovery.
Yeah.
It's almost like sober coaching from home. So if you are a mom going through that, or even want to do it in silence. I mean, it's not recommended to do it in silence, as you and I know, right? You need that community.
Yeah.
But it will help direct you with meetings. It'll help you with your schedule. It'll check in with you. It's a great app.
Yeah.
I know a number of people that have gotten sober through it. And but I really appreciate you coming out, Marci. Yeah. I really appreciate you coming on. Your story is unbelievable. What you've been through, what you've overcome. You are the epitome of overcoming adversity and making it out on the other side. So
thank you.
I appreciate it. And where can people find you?
I would say I'm most active on Instagram at Wake Up with Marci, or you can go to my website, wakeupwithmarci.com. And I'm not really good about plugging myself. I like to stay humble, but I will say that my book, I know, has helped a lot of people. So I'd love to share the name of it. If anyone is interested, just checking it out. It's called Chaos to Clarity, Seeing the Signs and Breaking the Cycles. And it's really my journey from going from that chaos of life into the clarity and peace and joy in life. And I educate people through my personal journey to kind of connect with people where they are. And then how I got out on the other side, what I learned through the 12-step process, and what tools. There's an addiction toolkit in there, and what can help you through sobriety, and just the success that I've been able to create in my life from this journey, and help you to do the same. So I was very guided by God to do that. And it's seeing the signs from the other side, because I've had so many God moments in my life. And everything I do truly is guidance by higher power. And when we get quiet, we're all guided. We're all guided. It's just, quieting our minds and finding that peace to be able to listen. And then breaking the cycles is about breaking the generational cycles.
Really quick, we'll end with, I like what you just said, clearing the mind so that we can see the signs of God throughout the day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you so much again.